sisters, we came here today in the answering of the call. Our Creator, Provider, and Sustainer has blessed us with guidance and has called us to come together on Friday to remember His blessings and to soak in some guidance from His message. Obviously, everybody in this life is going to ponder over that fundamental question: what is the purpose of life? What am I doing here? What is my consciousness and my moral awareness about? The Quran answers that question in a very direct, very seemingly simple way. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And I have only created jinn and humanity so that they will worship, so that they will serve me. And so what we have here is the concept of worship, the concept of service. It is crucial as believers to first understand that He did not force anyone to be a believer or to follow His message, just like He did not force anybody away from it. Everyone is responsible for choosing to live in accordance with their very heartbeat and existence in the first place, to surrender to the will of that which organized this universe and gave everything a purpose and a meaning, to make our meaning, our life and purposeful meaning in servitude to Him. So our scholars, they talked about the concept of worship and service, and they said it starts with a sense of humility in the heart, in the mind, realizing I am not the cause of my existence and I do not control reality. There is one that caused existence and there is one that controls reality. And I require Him to be able to live this life and to die having fulfilled the natural purpose for which I was created. So this subservient service, that I am surrendering myself. I am not doing what I do because I want to do it. I do what I want to do because He wants me to do it. And then in that process, a person becomes on a state of excellence in which they appreciate and they like to do what they were told to do. But before that process, you have to really fight at it. You have to struggle at it with this self, with this desire of what I want and what I want to do. And so it is exalting God above ourselves, and it is knowing Him according to how He has revealed Himself to us. So anything we do seeking His pleasure, His contentment, in love of Him, anything we intend to do or say, that is an act of worship. So our scholars, they talk to us about what is worship. After studying the entire Quran and all of the linguistic beauty of it, after studying the life of the Prophet ﷺ thoroughly, they derived so many different ideas about worship. And they said it starts with a sense of mindfulness, these things in your heart. What is at the core of who you are? Do you truly love God? Do you truly love His Prophet ﷺ? Are you giving lip service to that? So you have to cultivate the love of God and the love of the Prophet ﷺ in your heart. This concept of mindfulness, a state of reflection. Am I doing what is pleasing to Him? Am I truly putting my trust in Him? Having a sense of hopefulness that no matter what I'm going through, I will die and I will return back to my Creator, Provider, and Sustainer. And in that place is perfection. There is no perfection here. No true happiness exists as a result of living in this world. The only true happiness is appreciating this world according to eternity that awaits us in the presence of the divine. And so these concepts that we cultivate in our heart are acts of worship. Wanting to do what is pleasing to Him, feeling shame in doing what is displeasing to Him. These are acts of worship in the heart. But the scholars, they said the most important act of all worship is seeking beneficial knowledge. The most important act of worship is seeking beneficial knowledge. Because when you have a good knowledge mindset, you know what you're doing and why you are doing it. You have the ability to articulate to others what it means to be a servant of God. and you have a sense of comfort and confidence because of that expansive knowledge, then all forms of other worship are opened up wide. That is the key to any type of worship, because we don't make up worship. We don't decide what is worship from our own ideas or from our own invention. And so they said that helping people in general, being helpful, that is an act of worship, as long as you intend to be pleasing God by doing it. So when you see somebody who needs help and you do that for them, you're doing an act of worship. The way you speak to people, how you talk to them. Do you smile at them when you talk to them? Do you appreciate other people's thoughts and feelings? This is an act of worship. There are ayahs and hadith that show us the Prophet ﷺ refined that and taught that to others, and that communication was something very cherished as an act of worship. The Quran has many places. قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. When you speak to people, say the best of speech. Forgiving people's mistakes. This is an act of worship. It's something you choose to do that creates a better relationship between you and other people. Being clean and tidy is an act of worship. Trying to keep your surroundings clean and orderly is an act of worship. Why? Because Al-Qayyum, the one who is ordered and given structure and order to the universe, you are worshiping him. Being kind and merciful to children, understanding they don't get things that we get. This is one of the big problems. This is one of the big types of worship a lot of Muslims across the world struggle with, because they are now expecting a small child, having forgotten being a child themselves, that they should be living up to certain things that they're not ready to understand. They're not trying to be bad. They don't get the difference between bad and good yet. You can't be hitting them and yelling and screaming at them. This is completely sinful. But yet many Muslims, religious Muslims, people who pray 5 times a day, read lots of Quran, do those things, because they're seeing that when they prayed 5 times a day and they read their Quran, they did their worship. But they're not seeing how I treat my child is an act of worship. That's secularization, removing us from the comprehensiveness of God's presence and our relationship with him as his servants, which is a momentarily, step-by-step, day-by-day reality, not something you do once in a while. Divine law teaches us that worship, which is beneficial to others, is superior to worship that benefits oneself. And that goes back to the point, is that the vast majority of people, if you ask them what is worship, is it praying, reading Quran, fasting? Who's that benefiting? Yourself, right? And that's why when the Prophet ﷺ said what he said, he's just making the point of the cultural context of how people see it. فَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ. There's many narrations in which the Prophet ﷺ said the superiority of the one who knows the religion. Here, see, we compartmentalize concepts. We think alim, we think some guy, mashallah, sheikh, the Azhar, and he has the robe. Alim is someone who knows their religion. Everyone in here is an alim to some degree or another. Someone who knows. So what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, someone who has exerted a lot of effort and put in a lot of their free time into knowing and understanding the religion is superior to someone who reads lots of Quran and prays lots of rak'ahs. When we say read Quran, the one that's read just to be reading it, to get the khatam done, not the one that the Quran was intended for, which is reading to understand and live accordingly. And so here is where we find ourselves in the conundrum. This is why Abdullah ibn Abbas told the people, I feel as a believer, it's better for me to go helping my Muslim brother out if he needs some help, rather than staying 1 whole month in i'tikaf in the mosque. He understood this. He got that point. And we see this among the companions. When we see the Prophet ﷺ talking about there are 3 deeds which will continue building your scale of spiritual worth. Did he say salah and, siyam? No. He said that you will teach somebody knowledge that benefits them and others. He said that you will put money into something that other people can use the services of what you use, of what you put your money into. Sadaqah jariyah. And then he said, a righteous child. You put your effort in to make sure that this child truly owns their faith, has a strong spiritual grounding, and they will benefit the world. And now they're praying for you, and their prayers are highly acceptable because of the work you put in to raise that child to become someone of benefit. And so that's why that was made such an important thing. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ad-dalu ala al-khair kafa'ilih." The one who guided someone else to do good is like the one who did it themselves. Meaning, anytime you introduce somebody to some sort of goodness and good behavior and acting and righteousness, a way of living, when they do the deed that they learned because of your interaction, whether it's your child, your neighbor, your coworker, or anyone, then you will get the rewards when they do it. And their rewards will go with them as well. It's not like you take their reward. And so the Quran says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there be among you. And so this among you, is it some group among you, or is it among you, every single one of you who are listening and reading to this Quran, that you are part of a nation, a whole collective, who are all obligated to call to all that is good and to promote and to direct people to that which is beneficial and wholesome, and that they prevent and rebuke all of those things that are corruptive and harmful. That is the better understanding of this, looking at so many of the other ayahs and hadith. This idea that only some people are supposed to do this, it doesn't go along with many other ayahs and hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَتَأْمُرُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَتَنْهَوُنَّ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ أَوْ لَيُوشِكَنَّ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عِقَابًا مِنْ عِنْدِهِ ثُمَّ تَدْعُونَهُ فَلَا يَسْتَجِيبُ لَكُمْ. This is where we're at as an ummah. Our priority system somehow has gotten confused. Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by the one whom my soul is in his hand, that you must all call to that which is good, promote goodness in society, actively working to make the world a better place. That you must be actively standing against, preventing and stopping and rebuking evil and harm and corruption. Or if you don't do that, Allah will send down a collective punishment on you. You'll pray for his help and you will see no response. This hadith pretty much sums up the ummah. So we have to ask ourselves, where are we with this hadith? Many scholars, they made the correlation of this calling to that which is right to promote wholeness. This is the sixth pillar of Islam. Imam al-Ghazali said, Al-Qutb al-A'zam, the greatest aspect of the religion, Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf wal-Nahy anil Munkar. He said it is the greatest aspect of the religion, which is the goal which all prophets came for. Why are you reading Quran? Why are you praying? Why are you fasting? So that you can discipline yourself against yourself and to align yourself with the one whose asma was sifat, you will be living according and promoting accordingly. That's what that half of the religion is about, is to get you to the goal, the second stage, promoting what is good in the world. Having the courage and the confidence and the comfort to make the world a better place. Not to be shy or pessimistic or sit there thinking, I can't do anything. It's not my problem. Those people, I'm not worried about them. We should all be concerned about them. The Prophet ﷺ was deeply saddened. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ أَلَّا يَكُونَ مُؤْمِنِينَ. The Prophet ﷺ was like really torn. And Allah said, keep on, keep the straight path, keep the course. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Imam Ghazali, he brings the ayah. وَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. Imam Ghazali says, Allah is telling us that we sent the messengers and the prophets with the clear proofs that they are prophets. the miracles and the prophecies and their achievements, some of them the punishments that came collectively. And they came with the scales of morality so that people could establish justice in the world. That's the whole purpose of prophethood. So we have to ask ourselves when hearing all of this, what exactly am I doing to establish justice in the world? What exactly on a daily basis do I do to promote welfare of the world? What kind of positive impact am I having on people? How am I alleviating the pain and the suffering? And how am I removing corruption and rebuking evil? Where do I stand with this? This is something very, very core to being a Muslim. And so if we're thinking, well, I'm not really doing much, then we have to think, how do I get involved? And when we talk about being a member of MCC, we know many people are struggling with this aspect. So when we say being a member, that's where we can empower you. We can give you training courses on volunteer work, on what's going on, being involved in the compassion or in connecting with people and building relationships with neighbors and churches and schools and everything, with getting involved in protecting our environment and promoting a good, healthy world around us and getting people involved in good actions that promote good health and welfare. There are many things that we are doing. If we relegate that to just email blasts, we see not very much from that. But if we have a team of people working intimately with people who have signed up, saying, you know what, I'm ready to commit. When I sign up for a member, I'm saying, I'm not just gonna be the standard, just Jummah person. I'd like to get a little bit more serious about my religion. I'd like to be empowered. I'd like to be given the path. I would like it to be made easy in front of me so that I can succeed as a believer. I am concerned about the welfare of my soul and the rest of the believers. And so I come to realize that Allah supports those who support His message, His calling. In tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. An-Nasr is not just saying I'm Muslim, especially if you're only Muslim to people who know that you're Muslim, and everybody else does not know anything about you being Muslim, or could they care less, or does it mean anything to them? If that's the case, we have a lot of overhauling to do. We have a whole new way of looking at life that we're now gonna have to embrace. So it's important for all of us to take that step of being an affiliated believer and then stepping up and becoming a committed missionary for the cause of Allah on this earth. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Obviously, for the majority of serious Muslims who have some good educational background, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is just short of being a prophet. He's a human being that lived a life that was very, very rich. His whole existence was very much empowered by this revelation. He fully committed himself. He stood out very clearly. Now I'm going to tell you that I've asked teenage Muslims, who is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq? And I've had people who are called Muslim teenagers to say, I don't even know who you're talking about. There's a disconnect. Because they could tell you all about some other people. Whole story, whole life story. That's, as parents, going to fall back on us. But also, there's a little bit of over-romanticizing Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. It's like I could never be Abu Bakr. I'm just a simple sinner. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu talked about how he was a sinner. As a matter of fact, there's a narration on his deathbed. He was hoping that he could be an animal on the Day of Judgment so he wouldn't have to face a hisab. That's how mindful he was of his own sins. Because in fact, he was a human being just like me and you. Whoever have brainwashed you otherwise is trying to limit your potential. Abu Bakr is not a prophet. He did not get revelation sent to him. He was not specially chosen. He chose, when he heard the Prophet ﷺ tell him about his message, to fully commit. Siddiq. صدقه بالقلب أولاني ثم باللسان والعمل. He fully confirmed and ratified the Prophet ﷺ's message. In his heart, he was fully ready to commit. In his words and deeds, we saw it. So Abu Bakr is a human being with family, potential to sin. He did sin. People that are human beings sin. But he was the greatest human being we have record of who was not a prophet. It's important to look at his behaviors, his priority system. So from the very beginning, certain ayahs were being revealed about selflessness. Expending yourself for the welfare of others. So when he started noticing in the very beginning that people were being tortured for just being Muslim, he spent his life savings to free them so that they could just be free Muslims and they wouldn't have to go through this under the power of someone else. He saw that as a big priority. The first thing he did before that, when he heard of the Prophet ﷺ, he went to his close 5, 6 friends. He went to the closest among them. And he started introducing them to Islam. And when he learned new ayahs, he brought these ayahs to them. To the extent that all of the great companions, those of the Mubashirin bil Jannah, those who we know were so pious and stand out, 7 of them came to Islam to Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. All of their deeds are going to be in his scale too. He chose to do this as a human being who's capable of sin. You and I can choose to do this. We don't want to be content with a gray area in our commitment to faith. We want to put it at the top. So we have the Sunday school, and I've talked about this before, and we really have to see this reality. Some people are saying, maybe there's too much homework you're giving in the Islamic school here. I'm telling you, I swear to you, our kids are struggling with knowing what it means to be Muslim and living as a Muslim. They're struggling heavily. There's so many things pulling at them. There's so many things they're struggling with understanding. There's a big difference in the culture of their parents who brought them here to raise them here and the way they think in their culture and their mindset. There are so many things. It should be the top priority to understand. And so if we said we would like them to spend 2 hours a week studying Islam, and then somebody comes back and says, well, right now, they're at their school and they're studying 25, 30 hours a week for secular sciences, for the general knowledge. And so I don't think we have time for this religion. What does that mean? What does that mean, how we think? Where did we get that from? Is that pleasing to Allah? Is that something that we should be comfortable with? When we die, had we have gotten a PhD and made all this money and all of that, and then we find ourselves, we did not have guidance and did not know the way and did not take it seriously, I don't think all that PhD and the money is going to help on the day of judgment. It won't. Now, are we saying it's not a good thing to get up here? No, of course you should excel. As a Muslim, you should excel in the sciences and be the best you can be and be a great contributor to the world. We're not bringing some strange idea that we sit in the mosque all day. What we're saying is, at this point, we should make the heavy priority on understanding Islam. And when I say that, for whatever reason, they grew up not knowing this in a house of people who believe they know it. So I think we also, as parents, should also take a huge priority, and that step of التذلل والخضوع هو أصل العبادة. This sense of humility and subservience. Maybe I don't have Islam all under control. Maybe I have some things to learn. Maybe I have the wrong idea about Islam in many different ways. Isn't that possible? I will tell you, if we just take a look at the Muslim world and who's leading it over there and what teachers are doing and how people are easily pulled away from Islam, my personal feeling is clearly we are misunderstanding and misprioritizing Islam in many ways. That's my personal perspective. So we need to reflect and review. The Prophet ﷺ, one time he was sitting with his companions and he said, who woke up today and decided they were fasting? Abu Bakr said, myself. He said, okay, who fed some poor person today? Abu Bakr said, me. He said, who went to the funeral today? He said, me. He said, who visited someone sick today? And so Abu Bakr has this idea of every opportunity of spiritual expression, worship. I want to jump on it. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, there is nobody in all of the companions who has benefited me more than Abu Bakr in his self and in his wealth. He was always looking for that opportunity. And so one of the great, Imam al-Muzani, one of the great scholars of the Tabi'een, he said, ما سبقهم أبو بكر بكثرة الصلاة والصيام ولكن بشيء وقر في قلبه. Abu Bakr was not so superior because he prayed lots of salah and because he gave he fasted many days. You'll find people praying more than him and fasting more than him amongst the companions. But there was something in his heart. He was this big-hearted person like we talked about last week. And he had this missionary focus of being a believer, that this is my whole purpose in existence. And that's what gave him success. And if he wasn't who he was, we wouldn't be sitting here. If Omar wasn't who he was, we wouldn't be sitting here. And the list goes on. So why we go back to them, not to be like, oh, those are amazing stories of those pious people who now nobody could be like them because we're all, weak in our faith. Whoever's doing it like that should not be. It's like, how can we create the model they established here and today in relevance and in prioritized understanding? That's the way we should go. So Allah, we ask you to organize and mobilize us as believers that we may serve you and do your work in this world. Ya Allah, we ask you to purify our hearts from any of the sin that we have attached ourselves to, and to put in our hearts the love of you and your messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask you to make the straight path easy for us, to make it clear for us, to pave the road to heaven as you have given it to us. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us people who benefit the world around us, who our da'wah is rooted in our words and deeds. Ya Allah, we ask you to join our hearts and make us a community of believers that look to help each other in the path of goodness, that we look to remove evil and corruption from ourselves and from our families and our neighbors and the rest of people. Ya Allah, we ask you to send your peace and blessings and mercy on Prophet Muhammad and all of those who follow him until the day of judgment.